Welcome back. In this lesson, I'll show you how to use the Bootstrap Navbar. And I'm going to place it in the header of my page where I have this Jumbotron component, which is basically this top area right here, and also my navigation. I'm going to start with this, a nav with a class of Navbar and Navbar default. And for accessibility, I'm going to say role navigation. All right, now this will place this navbar on the top of my page. Inside, I'm going to do a container, and I'm going to place all of my navbar components inside this one. In here, I'm going to say navbar header. Now, the navbar header will contain the navbar brand, which stands for the logo, and if I want to create a responsive version, I'm going to add a button that will toggle that responsive version of the navbar. So I'm going to start with A with a class of navbar brand. I'm just going to say brand. And there it is. Okay, for the button that will trigger the responsive version, I'm going to use a button. Type is going to be button. The class is going to be a navbar toggle. It's a special class. Then for data toggle, I'm going to say collapse because it's a expand collapse type of mechanism. And then for data target, I'm going to use an ID, let's say example nav collapse. Inside the button, I'm just going to do a span with a class of icon bar times 3. Now you can't see it right now, but if I resize this, there it is. And also for accessibility purposes, again, I'm going to add a span with a class of SR only, where I'm going to put toggle navigation. This is a text that will be read by screen readers. And of course, you can't see it on this screen. Okay. So now for the actual tab contents. Outside this header div, I'm going to do a div with a class of collapse, navbar collapse, and I'm going to give it an ID of example nav collapse. It's the same ID I used here. Inside it, you can put anything you want. You can put links, you can put drop-down menus, you can put forms, and so on. So let's start with some simple links. I'm going to say UL with a class of nav and navbar nav, and I'm going to put list item times 2 with 2 links. That's going to say link number. And there it is. Link 1, link 2. If you want to add an active class to a specific link, simply add it to its parent list item, like this. And what about forms? Well, you can add a form by using the form with a class of navbar form and also navbar left to align that form on the left side. Okay, let's do like a search form. So I'm going to say role search. I'm going to use a div with a class of form group, and inside I'm going to put an input type text. I'm going to give it a class of form control, and I'm going to put a placeholder of search. And there it is. That is a search form. You can also add a button type submit. Let's give it a class of btn and btn default. Submit or search, however you want to call it. If, for example, you want to move this form to the right, all you got to do is change the class to navbar right, and it's going to move it all the way there. Now, if you have buttons that you want to add and they are not inside a form, you can do that by saying, let's say, A with a class of btn, btn default. Oops. This is a button. Let's refresh. And notice it's not vertically aligned inside the navbar. So by adding the extra class of Navbar btn, you make sure that it's now properly aligned. Same goes for text. If you want to add a different text, for example, a paragraph, hello, it will break your layout unless you add the class of Navbar text. And it's going to put it right here. Now, with all this content, if we resize our page or view it on a smaller device, notice that around 768 pixels, my navbar goes responsive. So by clicking this, we should get a drop down, but nothing's happening. So I must have made a mistake somehow. Let's see. Type button, navbar toggle. Data target is example nav collapse. Oh, I did a small typo there. Example nav collapse. Refresh, and there it is. It shows you the links, the buttons, the text, the search form, everything. Cool. So that's how you create the responsive nav contents. Now the navbar has a few more options. You can set its position to fixed on the top or on the bottom by adding a class of navbar fixed top. Refresh. So now if I have some more content, and let's see where it is. Demo area. I'm going to do a container here, and I'm going to do some paragraphs with some lorem ipsum text. I'm going to copy these a few times. Right, so now when we scroll, notice the navbar stays right there. Same goes for setting the navbar fixed to bottom. There it is, it's now on the bottom. And finally, if you want a different variation of the sidebar, you can use the navbar inverse class. And this will create a dark navbar instead of the traditional one. And of course, this can be modified through CSS, but as a default one, you get various options. So there you go, lots of options for this component, as I said, and you can use it in a variety of situations depending on how you want the navbar to look like or what it should contain. Now, moving on, I want to show you a component that's been added in version 3, the list group. That's coming up next.